And the one curious question I think our viewer will have questions for is you didn't never had that stable W-2 job. Actually, I have a
Correct.
question for that too. It's like, how did you get a recourse loan? I'm assuming these are a recourse loan because it's local bank, which means
Hmm.
if you lost them, they will go after your other assets. So you have to personal guarantee them. And oftentimes when I do a personal guarantee, even on my residential stuff like fourplex and etc., they ask me gazillion paperwork, right?
Hmm.
So we some of our view has been told by the bank, if you don't have a W-2 job, it's going to be very hard to qualify. So how did you kind of make that work?
It was again a combination of talking to a lot of banks, and then the first deal I did, I was successful
Hmm.
somewhat. I got my money back and made a little bit, and
Yeah.
so it's just really just talking to enough banks because I had the same problem. I would run into banks that no, your job isn't stable. I mean, even though I'd been doing it at that point
Right.
for 4 years,
Commission. Yeah.
yeah, it's commission. You can go down to zero the next day, which I could.
Hmm.
So we're not going to do it. So it was
Yeah.
just a matter of talking to enough banks and getting one that would do it. And another thing is, this goes back to networking. Go to these even free local real estate meetups. Ask them for referrals. If
Hmm.
you get a referral to a bank, that helps a lot because
Yeah.
that is not just you showing up to someone you've never met. It's someone that already has usually done a deal with that bank saying, hey, this is a guy I know. They're looking to do a deal. And that gives you instant credibility because you've got
Right.
your own plus the person that referred you.
Right.
So that's another tip I would say is, credibility book and then try to get a referral to a bank, and that helps some.
That's awesome. And so you now bought mobile home park. Now, operation wise, how would you say it's different from apartment building? And then what
Mhm.
are the first couple things when you went in and did that has big impact?
So uh, there's with parks, you have parks that are park owned home, which means the owner of the park owns all the homes and rents them out. And they're similar to apartments. And then
Hmm.
you have what I think is the ideal. It's tenant owned, where everyone owns their own home and you're just charging them lot rent.
Hmm.
And usually parks are a mix of this.
Yeah.
So the first thing we did of the 30-unit park, there were about 5 vacant homes, but they were already sitting there on the lot. So they just had to be
Hmm.
rehabbed and sold. And then
Hmm.
there was another 10 or so that were rentals.
Hmm.
We rented out the other ones, and we actually sold them all. I don't think we rented any of those. We just sold them for cash, and then we
Hmm.
sold them pretty cheap looking back. I mean,
Gotcha.
yeah, but the benefit is what we were able to do at this park. The market lot rent was about 350. The people that were already just renting the lots, they were only paying 175.
Hmm.
Now, it's not like apartments. You can't just take them up to market.
Hmm.
We usually try to take them up $50 at a time.
Hmm.
So we took up the lot renters to, I believe, 225.
Hmm.
The people that were renting the homes, we sold them to them, and the one benefit to that is we took them from renting it for, let's say, 500 down to 350 lot rent.
Gotcha.
And so we were able to instantly take them to market. So when you averaged out, the average rent went up to about 300.
Yeah.
And so and then the beauty of it was then we had essentially zero repair and maintenance because they're doing
Hmm.
all their own stuff.
Hmm.
As a park owner, you're only really responsible for the roads
Yeah.
and for the utility lines going from the mobile home to the city's hookups. And these were city utilities, the direct bill.
Gotcha.
At that point, it was awesome because we
Yeah.
did literally had to do almost no work after that, other
Hmm.
than what we do typically as far as management is we have someone in the park that will post late notices and they'll walk around once a month and look for rule violations. If they got a trampoline the insurance doesn't allow, if they've got a junk out, they'll go have that conversation and have them clean
Hmm.
that up. And if they're late, they post the late notice. So it really just, and at one point I had about 200 mobile home sites and I had 20 apartments, and it was easier for me to manage my 200 mobile home lots than it was for
Hmm.
me to manage my 20 apartments.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
It's crazy.
yeah.
And then, so do you have on-site to any of these for any of these mobile home parks?
Yes, usually we'll have, unless they're right next to each other, we'll have one person in the park. And how we pay them typically is we give them free lot rent, so they save the 350 or so a month, and we give them $10 per lot in the park per month. So if
Okay.
it's between those two, it was a 13 in a house and then the 30 unit, so that was 45. We gave them, I think it's around $500 a month plus the
Hmm.
free lot rent.
Gotcha.
And really, there's not a ton for them to actually do on a day-to-day basis. I mean, they're just pretty much your eyes and ears. And then, the first week of the month, maybe they're passing out some notices. But other than that, they don't really do much. And a lot of
Hmm.
times there's someone that's retired or older and they've been there forever and they just want to keep the park clean. And so, if you got a park and you get it stabilized, there's not a ton that goes into, the day-to-day operations of it.
Yeah, yeah. So how do you just get lucky on all these parks that you always find a person like that in there? Or do you kind of look for them when you're like going outside doing your due diligence, or like some sort of ways to kind of spot it,
Sure. So a lot of the times, I'd say the majority of the time, there's somebody in the park that's helped out mom and pop, the original owners. And that's our first thing, is we ask them, is there anyone that you would recommend to be an on-site manager? Or we usually call them greeters. And usually they have someone in mind. If they don't have anyone in mind, what we'll do is we look for the nicest looking home in the park, the one that's the cleanest, the nicest yard. They got the carport, the flower garden. And we go to them and ask them, hey, do you have any interest in being the manager? And we tell them what that entails. And a lot of times they want to. If not, we go to the second nicest home in the park. We'll just go down the list until we get to, someone that wants to do it, and we'll try them out.
Yeah.
Now we've had a couple instances where there's no one in the park that either wants to do it or we don't think that they would be a good fit.
Yeah.
In that case, we've brought outside people in, and we'll do one of two things. Typically, we will provide housing, so we'll have a vacant mobile home. We'll let them live in for free, and then we pay them X amount a month to be the manager, and then their home becomes the office.
Gotcha.
So that's one benefit of having someone on site is, if they live in the park, everyone knows them where they live, and you don't have to pay separate for an office and utilities and all that. And you just put the sign out front of their home, and then the office is there. So. Gotcha.
Awesome. So did any person that was on-site manager that you have to fire, or, like have to kind of talk to them and just say, okay, because they live there, so it's not as easy to kind of fire them, or,
We have, and it's funny. They'll get kind of mad, and then they'll say, okay, and they just go back to being a resident.
Yeah.
And one of my mentors with parks, I talked to him about this, and he said, sometimes we cycle through the whole park. We'll start at resident 1, we'll go all the way up to 50, and they all don't work out, and we go back to resident 1 and say, hey, remember when you were the manager? Yeah, I remember. Well, remember that thing you shouldn't have? Yeah, I know. Well, can you not do that again? We'll make you the manager. Okay. Like I said, they've been in the park usually their whole lives, and it kind of, like I said, it's uncomfortable for sure. Yeah. That's one thing that I've learned. If there's someone that's not working out, if you just, they do something and it's not acceptable, it hurts to get rid of them, because then you have to do it to get someone else, but you've got to do it, because if you just keep them on, you're making a bigger problem for yourself, and you're getting yourself in a deeper hole.
Absolutely.
So we had to fire someone recently. It was not fun, but we've already got someone else lined up, and they're a lot better. You got to do it. You got to and that's with really almost life and savings, is take the temporary pain now to have a better future.
Yeah. And then, so I totally agree with that, because I think that actually goes beyond just park managers. It goes to any type of employee, because if you don't have the right person, that's going to be spread out as a kind of toxic disease around everyone, right? And
one other thing I'll say real quick on that, with parks, as I said, if once you've got it stabilized where they all own their own homes, you don't have to have like a superstar to manage it. That's why you can get by with somebody who's paying them not a ton of money, but they just like doing it because they're there all the time anyway, and they want to keep the place nice. So it's not like a restaurant where if you get a terrible manager, they poison somebody and you get sued and the whole place shuts down in a day. With the park, it can withstand somebody that doesn't work out and that ends up being horrible, and just get rid of them. And one other thing that we've done is we have all of our rent collection automated to where everyone will either pay online or they pay at a store. And that way the manager's completely out of the loop with collections. So that if we have to get rid of them, it's just a seamless transition. Send out a letter, okay, this person's along with the manager. They're not collecting the rent anyway, so there's no chance of embezzlement or anything like that. So that's one way we've kind of worked around having to deal with managers.
Got it. So sounds like you have a system and process in place. How many employees do you have aside from the on-site manager right now?
Only one, and all the other ones are independent contractors, because they also will do handyman stuff, or their spouses will for us, and so we pay them also by the hour for that stuff. And but we have one person there, a district manager, and that was my biggest, and that was just recent. Within the last month we hired them, because what started taking up a lot of my time was just talking to these community managers all the time. They'd call me about everything. and then they tell me, and I like talking to them a lot of times, but I'll be in the middle of something and they want to talk on the phone for an hour. So that was the next big hire, I guess, for me, was getting somebody between me and the managers. And so that's really freed up my time to be able to start, looking at other deals and then going from there.
Yeah, awesome. So you put the system in place, and then did you build the system step by step? What is like the most important, if someone was to take over mobile home park, what is the most important first step? And then like subsequently, like the contracts that you have, I'm guessing you got some of that because you had a multifamily. So that's something that you could cross leverage. But what are the things that it's new on top of it with mobile home park? Because I know like a lot of our listener are mobile home park enthusiasts, but they haven't just made the switch, and they potentially currently have some single family or multifamily holdings as well.
I would say the two big things is, number one, you mentioned earlier, was get a good lease. Check with your state laws. For example, in Tennessee, if you don't have a certain line in your lease, you have to give them a 30-day notice before you file the eviction. And they're in there for another month, and then they're in there for another 10 days. So you have to get your lease worded to where you can evict them as easily and quickly as you can. With mobile home parks, this industry standard is using a month-to-month lease, because moving a mobile home costs about $6,000. So most of them aren't going to leave anyway, because they just can't afford to move the home. So they'll usually just sell it to somebody else if they leave. So you don't want to trap them in there with a year or 2-year lease, because it benefits them, not you. With a month-to-month lease, you can end it, with the 30-day notice anytime, then you can go proceed with the eviction. So number one, I'd say, was get a really good lease. And you can do that by really checking with your state mobile home association. Every state except for Hawaii has them. Or just talk to other operators and see if they'll share their lease. Then number two would be to automate the rent collection. And what we use is called Zego, Z-E-G-O, and it's integrated with property management software called Rent Manager.
Okay.
And we give everyone a card that they can take to any Walmart, Kroger, or several other places, and they can pay their rent with cash.
Yeah.
And then they get a receipt, it goes in your bank account, and it's marked as paid. If they pay late, they get a late fee. So then the only thing you have to do is go out or have your manager go and post late notices. So I would say get a good lease, automate collections. And the third thing would be then try to find somebody on site to, kind of navigate and be your greeter.
Yeah. And then, so do they manage, does your on-site kind of manage the vendor as well? Or like you kind of go there whenever the stuff has to be done?
Sure. So usually I'll have them get bids, and then I'll talk to them and get something scheduled. I will have the manager meet them out there to show them what needs to be done. Once it's done, I'll either visit it myself, or I'll have my manager send me photos of the work. Then I will pay the contractor. So in a way, they do help with that. But again, there's not a ton that goes on other than something like paving, or if there's a lateral line from the home to the city's lines that you have to replace. There's not a ton that goes on. Where it gets more difficult with parks is when you have lots of rental homes. Then it really is a challenge as far as getting repairs done all the time and things like that. So but yeah, it's kind of a combination of them taking lots of photos, talking to them, and then if you're able to go out there yourself to verify things are being done.
So in the beginning, when you buy a park, there is usually mixed. The park maybe not park on home. There may be a majority of them are park on home. So you kind of implement a policy, and that may take a couple months to get out of there. So I'm guessing during that period, you are kind of full on to that property, like arranging your vendors, like do this and that. That's kind of what you're doing, right?
Correct. Yeah, and sometimes it can take longer than that. And if you have any other rentals, you can use pretty much the same vendors. A mobile home is similar to a house or an apartment.
Yeah.
It's just usually not as high quality materials. And you can send the same. The guy was doing my apartments. He's doing a lot of the mobile home rentals. I still have the maintenance for those. And then you have to have a game plan to unload these homes. So the first thing we do is, as we're going around, when we take over, we give out the welcome letter. The renters, we ask them if they have any interest in buying the home. If they do, we ask them to submit offers to the company, which will then, we evaluate and then see if we'll accept it or not, or we counter them. And then that's the ideal one, if they can have cash to buy it. Most of them do not have a lot of cash. And so a couple things you can do. You can do what's called a rent credit system, where every month they rent the home, they get a credit. And after a certain amount of time, they can use those credits to buy the home. The reason we do that, because rent to own is kind of a gray area as far as it can be illegal. So we do it this way, so we don't have cross
in
that line.
Tennessee specifically.
Correct.
Yeah.
When really even federally with the SAFE Act, there's question of whether or not it's legal or not with mobile homes. So we just do rent credit. The other thing you can do, Clayton has a program, Clayton Homes, which is the biggest manufacturer of mobile homes. They have a banking arm that if you get your mobile home dealer's license, you can get certified with them, and you can sell rental homes to the residents. Clayton gives you all the money up front for the sale of that home, and then they finance just the home portion to the resident. So then you're just collecting lot rent from them. They're paying their home rent to Clayton. You get the money, and then they're doing their own repairs. So that's another thing that we just got certified to do that. And it took a long time because of COVID. We should have had this back in March. Now here we are in September. But so that's the other way you can do it. A third way is a lot of places will have these smaller loan companies like Colonial Loan or this or that. And usually they're independently owned small. A lot of places have these smaller loan companies like Colonial Loan or independent branches that you can go to. And a lot of times they will finance the purchase of these mobile homes to your renters if you'll co-sign the loan. And I'm fine with that anyway, because what happens if they don't make the payment and they get evicted, we get the home back anyway. So we just pay it off and then we do it over again. So that's a third way you can do it. And I guess really the fourth way, depending on the age of the home, if it's older than 76, a lot of times the home is really worth nothing. So we'll just ask them if they have any money at all. Sometimes they'll have $500, or sometimes we just give it to them, give them the home. And then, like I said, you can instantly reset their lot rent from, let's say I said they're renting the home for $500, market's $350, you get them down to $350, and then you got a tenant-owned home. So that really increases the value of your property. It gets rid of all the repair and maintenance, and that's the ultimate goal.
Yeah, because we listen to a lot of expert podcasts on these, and they always say, hey, you don't want to have park-owned home, but when you're looking on the market, it's like there's no property that is selling with no park-owned home, especially mom and pop perspective over there. You mentioned before that you guys source your own deals right now. How are you sourcing your own deal? I'm guessing the first 2 deals you got it from broker. At what point did you decide to kind of source your own deal? And then what is kind of like the system that you got with sourcing your own deals?
Sure. So the majority of our deals have been direct to seller. And that's really, we start off, what I did was I looked at a map of where I lived and the Walmart in the area. And I drew a radius of about 10 miles around Walmart, because I knew Walmart was going to be in a good location. And of course I lived there, so I kind of knew the area. Then I went on the local county's property assessor website and made a list of every single park owner, the owner's address that owned that park. And I just started door knocking. I would go to their house and knock on the door and say, hey, do you want to sell your park? And I actually got a deal from that. I've got a couple of deals from door knocking. The other ones were from cold calling. So I would then get the list of the owners. I would find their numbers online, call them up, say, hey, my name's Abraham. I live in the area. Have you ever thought about selling your mobile home park? The worst I can say is no. I mean, it's really, you gotta, if you're scared of rejection, you gotta get over it, exposure therapy, whatever, you just gotta keep doing it. So almost majority of our deals have been from direct to seller.
Gotcha. That's awesome. And then you have a database, obviously, you build up as well, like when you're doing all these. And then do you do all this by yourself again?
Sure. So I'm in the process of I'm hiring somebody to kind of help, source the databases. But yeah, I'm the one that's actually calling all these people. Gotcha. And I know others that'll use cold callers and things like that. So that may be something I do in the future. But yeah, so far it's just been me calling out to.
Gotcha. Awesome. That's awesome. Well, that's awesome. So you're pretty much doing this a full time, but I get that if you have 600 pads and then 11 property plus, I didn't even know that you have the multifamily house homes and etc. So you definitely have reached a standard where literally like your daytime job is that insurance thing, like N years ago, like, you probably already like reached the financial independence status per se. Is that transition kind of easy for you? Like, is the moment, because it sounds like you have gradually reducing your hours, so that's kind of more of a easing into. But have you ever kind of stopped and thought about, hey, if I do nothing, I'll have continued income coming in, especially with a child on the way. So you have that security, like even if you don't do anything right now, that you can potentially just sitting on these rental income. So did that transition ever hit you? Like, what do you thought about that?
Yeah, and I have. I thought, why do I keep doing this? Because I could just coast. And a couple of things stopped me. One is I just get bored. So even on vacation, which is really bad, I'll be somewhere and I'm just thinking, man, I should be working right now.
Yeah.
Not because I feel guilty in a sense. I like it. I really do like working. It's fun to me. And then part of it, I would say, is like, I know what I myself, I think I'm capable of doing so much. And I remember a quote back in the day I heard was, we judge others by their achievement, but we judge ourselves by our potential.
Yeah.
And I never wanted to be the kind of person that just sat around and said, I have so much potential and never did anything.
Yeah.
So I feel like if I'm capable of doing something, I should do it. And the other, there's a quote by Jim Rohn I liked a lot. You can find it on YouTube. It's called The Four Questions. But he says, well, you might ask why do this? Why read all these books? Why go all these seminars? Why do all this work? He said, and the question, the answer to that is, why not?
Yeah.
He said, why not see how high you can go, and see how many books you can read and how many push-ups you can do. And then he goes, and then why not you? Why don't you do it? If I can do it, you can do it. And then why not now? Why not start today and see what you can do? Yeah. So I've always thought, I'll see how far can I take it? And really, a big part of it, because I don't want to be, like when I first started, especially with insurance, I was working 80 plus hours a week all the time. I would work 7 days a week, morning till night. And that did burn me out after a while. Real estate, it's to me so much easier than insurance was. It's so much more fun. It's like a brotherhood. You're talking to people, sharing advice. With insurance, I could never imagine two agents getting together and sharing tips because they all want to, cut each other's throats. And so that's one thing that's been a lot more gratifying is with real estate. It's much more of a community. And I like doing it. What I really want to get to is where I'm finding deals and I'm talking to sellers. That's, to me, is the 20% that gives me 80% of the value. That's why I hired the district manager. That's why I'm really trying to outsource everything so I can just focus on the thing I enjoy the most and, to me, what brings the most benefit. And then ultimately, I think I'll want to get it to where I'm only working like 4 days a week, and then the rest I'm spending with my family or doing other things I want to do. So that's kind of the path I'm working towards.
Right. That's awesome. And then it's okay to take a little break because with a new child arrival, there may be some more time that needs to be spent or more sleep that needs to be had.
Sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Or lack of it when the child
comes. Yeah. And then so how is your wife or your significant other at the time kind of support your journey? Because it is a pretty hard, like, you got to work at this and you make it sounds like everything's so easy. Just because your attitude about like, hey, I can roll up my sleeve to do it. I'm sure when the rubber hits the road, there's actually a lot of hour, a lot of sweat, a lot of like, up and down, and that is kind of went in there. So how do you kind of manage your relationship with your wife? What do you guys do, kind of girls and guys do, that is kind of somewhat special for you to kind of also feeling fulfilled on the relationship part?
Sure. So I should mention this at the start, she's with me almost all the time. We work together, she's great. We look at properties together. We talk to sellers, we do all that. And that's been great. I mean, I know that is something just reading online is that can be a real hang up in where some person wants to invest and another one doesn't. So I'm really blessed to, my wife has been, completely supportive. And maybe it helped some. I had some rentals before, we got together and all that. So that continued on. But so that's definitely a great thing if you can both get on board with doing that. And then as far as other than work, try to set aside a day of the week where we just, do stuff together. And not saying we always do that because I'm kind of crazy and I'll still try to work and stuff. But that's one thing we try to do, and take many vacations. along the way to to stay sane.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. And then what is next for you? So 5 years from now, what is next for you? Like, what do you kind of envision?
My goal this year was to get in the top 100 of park owners, and I am now owner number 100.
Yeah. Nice.
And just with 632 lots, you can get to that, which is another thing I thought was kind of cool. It's a much smaller arena
Yeah.
than with parks or with apartments, I mean.
Yeah.
So that was my first goal. And my next goal, I want to get to 2,000 lots. And really, I just want to build, a great company that's automated. I want it to be, even if I want to keep working, I want to set it up to where I could just walk away and it could just continue running just like it normally is.
Got
So
it.
that's the goal, is to build a great company that is management, can find the parks and do all this really without even me having to work in it day to day or every day.
Yeah, that's awesome. And why 2,000 parks?
So yeah, 2,000 lots.
Or
It's kind of arbitrary.
yeah,
Lots. Yeah. Yeah. The guy I look up to a lot. He had 30,000 lots, and he just sold off 10,000. Now it's 20,000. He's number 5. So it's just another. It doesn't really mean anything. 2,000 sounds good.
Yeah.
If I got to that point, I don't know. I'd really feel good. And then I'm sure after that, I want to be at 5,000 and 10,000.
Or maybe some different classes. I don't know. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's my next big thing. And as far as on a personal level, my oldest brother's a private pilot, and in spring of this coming year, I want to get my pilot's license. That's something I've wanted to do for a while. And so, that's also the way I can justify that, because I still have that beginning, ingrained in me of do not spend any money that's not, not an investment or not savings. Is I can get a plane and then use it to go see sellers out of state quickly.
Yeah. That's funny. Yeah, that's awesome. So private jet is what you're going after. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Abraham. This wraps up our interview. And would you kind of be so kind to share with us, our listener, how do we get in contact with you?
Sure. So easiest way is my website is capitalcashflow.com. You can email me also directly, abraham@capitalcashflow.com.
Yeah. So I had this pulled up right here. It's called a capitalcashflow.com. And then he has his own podcast as well right now that he's interviewed other people who has cash flow, created cash flow for himself as well. So we'll check it out over there. And thank you so much for your time today.
Absolutely, Elisa. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you.